Welcome to 8 Steps to Rolling Out a Social Selling Program. My name is Bryn Tillman, and I'm going to take you through what steps are necessary and the stages in order for you to roll out a successful program. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about LinkedIn specifically, but LinkedIn really is the foundation to this entire program. That's really the primary platform. So let's start with why social selling before we get into the tactics. First, the buyer's journey has changed. We all know this, right? Serious Decisions reported that 67% of the buying decision is completed without the salesperson in the conversation. That's a big deal. So why does social selling impact that? Well, if they're doing 67% of their research, that means they're Googling, they're reading content, they're watching videos, they're consuming insights and value. And if we are not participating in that, then when they finally do reach out to a company or to a salesperson, it's not us. So it's so important that we're embracing social selling and that we are the thought leaders and the subject matter experts that are influencing that 67% so that when they're ready, we get the call. Number 2, we are all digitally connected. This scares me probably because I bring this stat up, but on average, we look at our mobile device 85 times a day. And we don't have that much viewing of our family or our coworkers. It is screen time. So if that's the case, then if we're digitally connected, so are our buyers. We've got to make sure that we're showing up where they're hanging out. And last, it is the evolution of sales. When I started in the early 90s, it was actually pre-fax machine. Now we don't even use those anymore. I didn't have an email. And if someone wanted information on what I sold, there was no Google. They had to call me. And that was a great era in sales because they had to pick up the phone and say, send me information. And it gave us the opportunity to have those conversations. Back to that 67%, that's not happening anymore. And so if we are not in the forefront of how people are buying, then we are really going to get left behind. It's not even a net neutral, it's a net negative. And so we've got to keep up with the times. So it's paramount. 69% of B2B buyers use LinkedIn to research purchasing decisions. Big deal, right? If 69% of the folks are using LinkedIn to research, we've got to be showing up. On average, this is a CEB Challenger Sale, now Gartner stat. On average, there are 6.8 decision makers in every enterprise sales decision. So whether you're selling to small to medium sized businesses all the way up into the large whales, it is important to make sure that we are touching all of those decision makers. So if you're a more small business, you're like, there's not even 6.8 people in a company. What I want you to do is really think about who are all the influencers. When I started in sales, there was typically a shopper and the person that held the wallet. And those were the two people I had to influence and chat with in order to make a sale. Today, they're much more collaborative. They're running ideas past the entire staff, if not, leads of departments, right? So we really have to figure out who's involved in this decision-making process. And maybe it's by title, but ultimately, how do we get in front of them and how do we influence them? They're not going to all turn into sales calls and meetings. So how are we getting in front of them and having an impact and really proving that we are the thought leaders and subject matter experts that they should be talking to while they're deciding on next steps to fix whatever challenge they have? And this is my absolute favorite. 74% of buyers choose the sales rep that was first to add value and insight. That's corporate visions. This is a huge stat if you're really ready to embrace social selling, or why you should be embracing social selling, right? What does this mean? It means 3/4 of the people choose the company, the solution based on who's adding the value and insights, not on price or rate or all the other things that we have in our head about why people aren't buying from us. They buy from us because we help, because we make an impact, because we are important in this journey. And so social selling is the primary way that we can get in front of these buyers with value and insights. So this is what most of us are doing. It's random acts of social. We are out there, maybe every day we're getting on LinkedIn, we view our little news feed, we accept some connections, maybe we even connect with some people. We engage on a little bit of content and maybe even check out our notifications and leave. But here's the thing, just like anything in business, if we are focusing on random acts of social, we are going to get random acts of business, right? There's not going to be any way to predict pipeline, to really help us determine what's working, what's not working, what activities are we doing that are converting to actual business, all that fun stuff. That comes out of purposeful prospecting, not from random acts of social. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really how do you put that system in place so that that it is purposeful, right? And here's the thing, although I have to now, I'm going to switch out this phone in a little bit, but the goal of social selling ultimately is to have more sales conversations. And the way that we teach social selling is, the goal of social selling is to schedule more sales conversations by leveraging the power of LinkedIn. Now, I said I'm going to change out this phone really because my conversations are rarely on the phone anymore. Almost every one of my sales calls are Zoom calls. So, I have the phone, but really the bottom line is it's about conversations, whether it's in person, on the phone, screen sharing, whatever, method that you use to have conversations. That's really what it comes down to. It's more sales conversations, period. If you are not focused on more sales conversations, then social selling is not necessarily what you want to focus on or use. So that doesn't mean you can't use social media marketing, inbound, but really what we're going to focus on when we talk about social selling is what are we going to do to schedule calls. Okay, so here are the primary 8 stages in rolling out a social selling program. The first one is establishing your goals and KPIs. Anything that you do when it comes to putting together a sales training program or even a sales training process needs to start with what are our goals and KPIs. KPIs are the key performance indicators that our management and leadership is going to use to measure how effective our sales reps are in using whatever program we rolled out. So we'll go in depth a little bit more in a minute on that. We need to buyer map. Actually, I'm going to go quickly through this one and then we'll go deeper on each one. Buyer mapping is really how are we finding the right buyers and influencers and stakeholders. Select tool stack. This is a big one. Whether you already have tools in place, it's about really aligning those tools and maybe adding a few others that could really have impact. We need to have a content strategy. With that stat from Corporate Vision, 74% of buyers choose the sales rep that was first to give insights and value. That's going to come from content. We need to customize a playbook, and we'll go in depth into this, but a playbook is really, has to include a few things, including daily cadence, step-by-step, message templates, right? So that when you onboard a sales rep to your social selling program, that they know exactly what to do and what to say at each turn. ValueCentric profile. This is so important. Most profiles are set up like a resume, and we need our profile to be offering insights and value. Obviously, you've got to train your reps on your program and then measure and coach for improvement. So these are the 8 steps that really solidify a program that will be effective. So let's start with the established goals and KPI. So we want to talk about, what does success look like at the end of this? And this is like any sales management program. Like when you sit down and you're going to set goals for cold calling, foot traffic prospecting, networking meetings, whatever you're doing, you want to say, if we're going to invest the time and energy, what does success look like? Is it 20% more first conversations, right? So pipeline grows 20%. Is it larger deals? Like what's important to you? And then you want to articulate your activity and results goals that align with the reps, the whole team, and the company, right? So there is a difference between activity and results goals. And you may know this, but I'm just going to throw out a result goal might be, I want to be on 5 targeted sales calls a week. That might be a results goal. But I can't really control the result goal. I can only control the activity that gets me there. So the activity might be, if I know if I get 20 warm introductions from clients and networking partners, from LinkedIn, that 10 of them will connect with me and 5 of them will become phone calls. So the activity goal is that I need to ask for or get 20 warm introductions a week. That's an activity goal. So, and that might get broken down even more. Maybe I need to reach out to 3 clients a week with a list of at least 15 names from each of them that I want to review with them. That might come down to 5 introductions each. Or my one-on-one networking meetings, I want to make sure I'm bringing 20 names of people they know, and they can bring 20 names, right? And then out of those 20, we'll get 5 to 7 introductions. And so that now we've really articulated, what do we want to get? So success, what does success look like? 5 more calls a week. How are we going to do that? What activity are we going to use to do that? And then we can measure if it's working or not. And then this is really important, is make sure, we talked a little bit about this, but identify the organization's goals as a whole. We don't want to silo our goals and our KPIs. We want to make sure that they align with what everybody's expectations are. Now, KPIs for LinkedIn can be anything from measuring your social selling index on an ongoing basis. So if you go to getmyssiscore.com, you can take, in the beginning, before you roll out a program, you can kind of take a baseline of where everyone is. You can look at the number of connections that a sales rep has as a baseline. And then when you do your one-on-ones, whether it's, and we'll talk maybe a little bit in coaching when we get to that piece, but ultimately, what's the baseline? Maybe we create a search string on LinkedIn that pull for our first degree connection. So we search our first degree connections to identify who in our network meets our exact criteria. So who are we already connected to? Maybe we do that search for a sales rep, and today they have 84, right? So that's a benchmark. Now we do that exact same search. And so instead of looking at net new connections across the board, how many connections are targeted? So if 84 goes to 90 this week, we know they've connected with 6 new right people. So keep that in mind. There are lots of KPIs, but if you don't establish these early on, it's really hard to measure the success of the program. And by the way, when we go into tools, we'll talk about integrating that into CRM. Buyer mapping is next, right? So we've got to identify all the stakeholders involved. If you remember that CEB, the Challenger quote, 6.8 decision makers on an enterprise sale. So it's really important that you go through and identify every title that you're touching. Now, we say decision makers. They're also influencers, right? So that's why I use the word like stakeholders. who gets involved in the conversations pre-sale, even post-sale, but the pre-sale at this point is what matters most because this is about prospecting really. But you want to make sure that you are identifying every single one of these folks, and you want to record the titles and the keywords from their profiles. So there's just a little bit of this upfront, like, are we looking at specific industries? Is it geographic locations? What's the criteria that we're looking for above and beyond their particular title or role? And so we can really start to narrow down and create the ideal list. Now, if you are in the free LinkedIn, you've got to use Boolean search string logic. If you have Sales Navigator, they have really fabulous search capabilities with filters that can go as deep as headcount number, department headcount number, in some cases revenue, how long your buyers have been at that particular role or in the industry. So there's some really powerful search filters in Sales Navigator if you're going that way. But honestly, the free offers quite a bit to help us to determine our ideal buyer mapping, our ideal string, right? So I went way ahead, right? And the other thing with buyer mapping, as long as we're doing this research, we want to pinpoint the business challenge for each of these stakeholders. So if you're selling an IT solution, obviously the CIO, the CTO, and any of those technology stakeholders have one challenge that you're solving. But you also have the CFO that needs to solve another challenge, which is budget, right? And you may have another group that's involved. So maybe you're selling a marketing IT solution, right? So your marketing stakeholders have, one objective / challenge. IT has another, and budgeting and, the CFO has another. So as we're building out all of those stakeholders, starting to identify the challenge for each of them that you solve can be really helpful. And that's going to move us when we get to content. It's really going to help us to develop the right content for the right buyer. Next is selecting the tool stack. So the first thing we want to do, and I don't have this here, but the first thing we want to do is take an inventory of the tools that we have available to us. Let's look at what people have adopted, what's not getting adopted, right? And what's essential. So obviously your CRM, your platform of record, is going to be your primary tool. And then we want to make sure that we back any process that we're going to put from social selling into your CRM or your platform of record, right? That's really important that we're aligning your process with the activity. Once you've established that, now you want to decide what productivity tools am I going to use. So we have a list of a bunch that we use, right? So first, I use Calendly.com so that my buyers can schedule with me, right? When I'm engaging with them, if I get a warm introduction from a client or a shared networking partner, to make scheduling easier. So I'll send a note, great to meet you, looking forward to chatting, exploring ways we might be able to work together. Feel free to send me some times next week that are convenient for you, or if you'd like to make scheduling easier, here's a link to my calendar. Pick a time that works best for you. And throughout my sales process, this calendar link has been transformative. I will be on between 8 and 10 scheduled calls every week, and about 95% of them show up to those calls. So I could cold call all day long and get lucky that someone picks up. But when I'm getting warm introductions and I'm engaging with people and having conversations online, they're actually excited to talk to me. And that calendar app is amazing. Here are sometimes, I have it everywhere. I have it all over my profile, right? So there are sometimes that I'll have a prospect literally schedule with me before I even talk, because before we even, had the conversation even online, because they read some piece of content or someone sent them my way. And so instead of that back and forth, like, how's Monday at 2? That's not good. How's Thursday at 1? Nope, that's not good. And then we forget the excitement. So the calendar app really helps to schedule. Short code. So we use a free Chrome extension. You can get it at autotextlink.com. And it stores all of my templates, my messaging templates. And with short code, if I have introduction paragraphs, connection requests, I try to customize each one, but I start with a template just to make it easier and time productive. Advocacy or amplification tools, there are a lot out there. Could it be anywhere from Buffer and Hootsuite to Everyone's Social to, there's a lot. LinkedIn has their own called Elevate. And these are literally like libraries of content that people, approved company content that people can then share from. So the larger the group, although some of them you can go small, the more important this can get. But you want to pick those tools. Grammarly, I think everyone should have it. It's free. It's on Chrome, and it's important that we're getting our commas right and our THENs and our THANs right. So when you're picking your tool stack, make sure you're focused there. Content strategy. So this is often one of the hardest pieces of social selling for sales reps. So we talked about that amplification tool, but you want to make sure that you've got a great partner, whether it's your marketing department or you've outsourced the content development, that really understands the strategy. And the overarching strategy that I think is absolutely vital is that your content needs to lead to your solution, not with your solution. When you lead with your solution, it's a pitch. Now, I'm not saying that we don't want content out there that talks about our products and services and features and advantages and benefits and all that fun stuff. But that's not what gets your prospect interested. When they are out doing their research, we want to make sure that they're learning from us, not just product learning, but real values and insights that are like breadcrumbs that lead to our solution. Checklists and other things like that that might be of real value to them. The 5 things they need to do before they make this decision, right? And whatever that is, it's leading to you as the subject matter expert and the thought leader, but it's not feeling like a pitch. So wherever you go to get that content from origination, make sure that you're doing that. You also want to look at what kind of content that follows our buyer journey, right? There's content when they're first kind of shopping and looking. There's content that helps them make some decisions, that helps guide them throughout the process. And remember, we talked about, what are the challenges for each of the decision makers. So there's content that follows each of their journey as well. It's not just necessarily content at the very top of the funnel, but throughout that whole sales process. So you want to develop both original strategy and curation sources. So one of the tools, we didn't mention this in ToolStack, but one of the tools that I love is Feedly. It's a free app that helps to curate content. They do have, but things like Buffer and all those amplification tools are all curation hubs. So we find great sources of content, preferably not our competition, but content that will educate our buyers and lead them closer to us, and then make it really easy for the sales reps to use and share. And that's where you develop that advocacy process for your reps. And there are some free ways to do it, and there are some expensive ways to do it, and there's everything in between. Next is customizing your playbook. So first, there's daily and weekly activities that we need to make sure we're covering in this playbook. What am I doing every day? So it could be things like look at who's viewed your profile and reach out to those that you'd like to start a conversation with. And then you're going to make sure that you've got the messaging in place to do that. Another thing in our customized playbook, look at your notifications. Wish people congratulations on new positions. If they are in a new position that's a potential buyer or stakeholder, here's what you should say, right? Like, so you want to make sure that you have a playbook that takes them through most of the potential scenarios that they're going to go through, and that you're offering them the messages so that they don't have to recreate the wheel every time they run into a new situation. Weekly activity might be reach out to one client a week with a list of 20 people they're connected to and have a little conversation. You know, Mr. Client, I noticed you're connected to 20 people on LinkedIn. Can I run these names by you? And then after 20 in a conversation, it comes down to 3 or 4 where that client feels that they would be a good fit for your solution. And then you can either ask for an introduction or permission to name drop. And you want to make sure that your playbook has those conversations in that, right? So, and they have, you know, how do you position this? You don't want to take this list of 20 to your client and say, here are 20 people you're connected to, can you make introductions? Because that's going to blow up, right? And so we want to make sure that we are providing in this playbook exactly what to say in each given situation so that your reps feel like they are really prepared. You want to align all of your LinkedIn messages. Well, I have end phone scripts, but also face-to-face scripts, right? So you want to make sure that you're not leading, you know, on LinkedIn with, hey, let's hop on a call and I'll provide insights, and then you hop on the call and you're pitching. You want to make sure that it's aligned and that there's a real comfortable, authentic flow. And the playbook really helps to develop a scalable, repeatable cadence that can go on, you know, beyond the initial reps that are trained. By getting that playbook, you know, it really helps them to run their social selling program so you can scale it easily. Number 6 is value-centric profile. Big deal. I mentioned this briefly, that your profile needs to be a resource. So we like to say we are converting that profile from a resume to a resource. What does that mean? Well, most of our profiles are about our background. But when we are a resource and we're providing value right from our profile, people are much more likely to want to have a conversation. I've had people say, I've learned so more from your profile than classes I've taken, more from the content and the videos that you share and, you know, the blog posts that you share right inside of your profile. So, you know, if you can be that resource as early on as first connection, these folks are excited to take your call, especially when you're positioning like, hey, Jane, it was great to connect with you on LinkedIn. I noticed, you know, or I'm so glad you got value from some of the content. I'd love to share additional insights on a quick call. Even if we never work together, I think you might get some value from that. So if we can prove that we offered value in our profile, we offered value in the content we shared, you are much more likely to get that call scheduled. The job is also to create curiosity. So yes, we're going to provide amazing insights and value, but if the more curious we can get them, the more likely they're going to want to take our call. It grows our credibility very quickly. And here's the thing that's really important. As you are offering these insights, you also have to relate to the buyer's challenges. You've got to really identify what are the pains and frustrations that they're feeling right now and call that out right inside of your profile. Like these are the challenges that folks are facing, right? And then you can go ahead and provide those insights that help to get them thinking a little differently about that challenge and, you know, the way to think about solving that challenge. And throughout your profile, all over the place, you want to make sure you have a call to action. You offer phone calls, have that link to the calendar, email, phone number, make it really easy for people to contact you. Now, when you roll out training, you absolutely want to make sure that it's customized. General training is fine for just knowledge, but it doesn't get the adoption that customization gets. And that customization comes down to that playbook being customized, right? Like it really comes down to all of that content that they can use that becomes scalable. If you have just general training, they're going to understand strategies and tactics, but without the actual messaging or what they should be doing every day that aligns with your sales process, the adoption rate is pretty low. Make sure you've got, in this case, instructor-led classroom or webinar, right? Like so on-demand live webinars, but you want instructor-led for full teams. Now, I've got videos all over the place. I participate in a lot of e-learning programs where there's self-study, and that's great if you're an entrepreneur. But if you really want to scale a training, a program for a full team and have everyone really kind of aligned and engaged, you want to make sure that they're instructor-led. There is just-in-time or guided learning as well. This is also can be customizable, and this is literally drip marketing onto your sales team with activities to do. And all of this can actually be gamified in the right environment. In fact, when you have some of those amplification tools, you're naturally gamifying it. But guided learning can be, gamified as well. So like you'll drip, on Monday, a little contest maybe, and then exactly what to do. On Tuesday, here's a piece of content, whoever gets the most engagement gets points, right? Like those kinds of things. Then measure and coach for improvement. So there's two kinds of coaching. There's rep coaching and leadership coaching. So obviously the reps are going to get coached on exactly what they should be doing and saying and where they're stuck, and if they're trying to get into a company and they don't have a shared connection, what can we do? But there's also the leadership coaching. So how do the leaders really figure out the best way to get the best adoption to the social selling program? And what are they doing on their one-on-one meetings that get them there? You also want to lead almost all of this coaching with data. So we talked about those KPIs, like what are we measuring? We want to make sure once we've established those KPIs that that's the data that we're starting our coaching calls with, like, right? Like, did you do the things that we expected that you would do, right? What does that look like? And when you lead with data, it's much easier to identify what's working and what's not working. When you have conversations and coaching, focus on real deals. Don't just be esoteric so how many people did you connect with? Did you reach out to clients? Although some of that's important, we want to focus on real specific deals. So I know you're trying to get into ABC company, right? So did you look them up? Did you put your search string in? Did you find all the stakeholders? Are you connecting with them? What's been the response? Do you have any warm, people that can make an introduction to you if you're not getting a response? But make sure your coaching is on those real deals. And in every coaching call that we have, we do a start, stop, and continue. So what, of all the things that we learned in the training that we're not implementing, what are some things that we might start doing? What are things that are just not working that we want to stop doing? And what's working well that we're going to continue doing? And when you can leave each of your coaching meetings with that, you're going to have success. So just a recap, establish your goals and KPIs, make sure you've got your buyer mapping down, you're selecting the right tool stack that will help adoption, right? So it's really the tool stack that will help your reps succeed. Make sure you've got your content strategy in place. that you've developed that custom playbook, that all of your sales reps have value-centric profiles that really offer insights to your buyers, that you roll out the right kind of training that creates the optimal adoption, and that you have ongoing measurement and coaching for improvement. And I thank you so much for coming through this as sales leaders. This is a really powerful program that will absolutely help your team be successful as you roll out a LinkedIn and social selling program internally. So I do offer private sessions, and we have a speaker special for you guys today. Typically, we do one 90-minute session for $500 where we can help, whether it's developing your own personal profile or helping you roll out these 8 stages. It's typically one 90-minute session for $500. We're offering 2 if you go to linkedin-sessions.com. So if you got a lot of value from this, but you're like, now what do I do? Like, what's my next step? Go to linkedin-sessions.com and you can schedule the first of your 2 sessions. Also, I have a book on Amazon. If you go to linkedinbook.info, it's the LinkedIn Sales Playbook that will really help additionally in rolling out as a guide to rolling out a program. So thanks very much for joining me on today's webinar. If there is anything I can do to help, let me know. Make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Bryn Tillman. Should have had my name here somewhere. I don't. There we go, right on and under the book. Bryn Tillman, currently I'm the only one. And let me know where you found me, and I'll send you some additional resources as well, even if we never talk. I'm happy to send those resources out to you. So thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the summit.